This is the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritchner. Your home for college basketball in the Cincinnati area and across the country every Monday through Friday during the season. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Today I was joined by Connor Lamons of Land Grant Holy Land to catch up on Ohio State, what the Buckeyes have done so far this season. Make sure if you haven't already, you go down, you hit that subscribe button, you go and you subscribe on all the audio platforms, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. You follow us on social media. Like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. Here's Connor Lamons. Great to be joined today by Connor Lamons of Land Grant Holy Land, and appreciate you coming on, Connor, to talk about some Buckeye basketball, get caught up on where Ohio State is. A great win over Notre Dame, a thriller really at the end, a game winner there in the closing moments of that game, and a fun one in the first high major test of the season for the Buckeyes. But right now, Ohio State 4-0, Jake Diebler in his second full season. Looks like he might have some things moving in the right direction in Columbus. And I want to start off by asking you, because Ohio State was a team that stuck out to me going into the season as somebody that felt like they flew under the radar. When you really started looking at some analytics of this team and how the roster fits together and some returning talent, of course, Bruce Thornton, we'll talk about him, but it didn't feel like Ohio State was getting a ton of love, especially within the Big Ten. And maybe that's because Jake Diebler still has something to prove. Maybe that's just because there's a lot of other talent with Purdue and Illinois, and you could go down the list, Michigan State in the Big Ten, and they just get lost in the shuffle. But Ohio State, to me, seems like a team that could surprise some people this year.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Nice to chat with you today. And second, I feel like you're on the right track there. Definitely more about the coach and the reputation and the history maybe than what's actually on the roster. There are national college basketball writers and podcasters that I have directly seen, mostly on Twitter, say like, hey, if this roster was coached by insert almost any other coach in the Big Ten, I would have them higher than whatever, 8th, 9th, 10th. And so, I think that Jake Diebler, never having been a head coach, is going to have to prove to a lot of the national writers and people that cover the sport that he can handle it and that he can have success, because fair or not, he hasn't had any success yet.
What do you think about this roster, Connor, going into the year? Do you think they are flying under the radar? Do you think, now I know they're 4 games in, but you get a win over Notre Dame the other day, make some headlines. Do you feel like this team is maybe going to catch some people off guard?
I think they have one of the better starting 5s in the Big Ten, personally. I think that if you look at all of the lists of like, the top 10 transfers, the top 25 transfers in America, I think that when the year is all said and done, Christoph Tilley, who's a dude that transferred in from Santa Clara, he's averaging, I think, 17 points a game through the first 4. Like, that's a guy that by the end of the year could be averaging 15 or 16 points a game, and people are going to look back and be like, how the heck did we not hear about him at the beginning of the year? He's going to end up being one of the best centers in the Big Ten. Bruce is going to get all the love, but they brought a lot back. And then to me, Tilley is like the big addition that people don't know about. Really, they will as the Big Ten season goes on, but he's going to be really good. He's already been really good.
Yeah, I think he's been phenomenal. Talk to me more about him and what you think he brings to the team.
Well, Ohio State hasn't really had a reliable post scorer probably since Caleb Wesson 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. And Tilley is not your typical big man where he's not going to be like a throw it down to him on the block, let him dribble 2, 3, 4 times, back a guy down. He's very skilled. He will bring the ball up like a guard if need be. He can operate on the perimeter. They came into the season saying like, hey, he's going to shoot threes for us. And he has been shooting threes. He just hasn't been hitting a whole lot of them. So that remains to be seen if, like shooting threes, if he's really going to be an inside out guy. But the fact remains, like, he can handle the ball. He can work on the perimeter. He can work when ball screens with Bruce or with Devin or with Junie Mobley. He's just a different kind of center and a guy that we've already seen so far, like averaging 17 points a game. They haven't had Ohio State hasn't had a big guy that can do that in like 5 years.
Yeah. And looking at, we were talking before we went on about what Ohio State has coming up in the month of December. So you have 2 Big Ten games, the December 6th, December 9th, back-to-back to open up conference play, Northwestern and Illinois, but also have Pitt in the non-conference, have North Carolina, have West Virginia, some challenging games outside of Big Ten play. How do you think Diebler assembled this schedule, and what do you like about it?
I think they made it a little bit easier than they did in his first year. They asked him a little bit about that this summer because last year they played Kentucky, they played Auburn. I'd have to look at a few others, but they had some really, really, really tough ones last year for a first-year head coach. And I think this season they wanted to schedule some challenging games, but I think maybe they learned from last year. Who else did they play? They played Pitt.
Pitt,
played Pitt. Did they play A&M last year, or was that 2 years
Texas
ago?
A&M lost by 14 in the middle of November.
A&M, Pitt, Auburn, Kentucky, like they just had a lot of tough ones. I think they softened it a little bit, but they still do have games on their schedule that are going to build the resume. Pitt is not going to be great, not expected to be great, but if you can win on the road at Pitt, that's a good resume builder. They've got Virginia in a neutral site game in February as well. If you can win that, it's a good resume builder. So not as tough as last year, but they've still added some good challenges.
Which, by the way, I love that. I don't need to get on my soapbox and do a tangent here when I have a guest on the show. I can do that after we wrap up here. But Virginia in a non-conference game in the middle of conference season, I think the sport of college basketball needs more of that. I think it's really good to see high-level teams from high major conferences compete at the end of the season, as opposed to, we're seeing like Louisville and Kentucky played on November 11th, 3 games into their respective seasons, right? Or whatever it was, a weekend. Play some games like this in February, in the third week of January and third week of February. I love that Ohio State did that against Virginia. Yeah,
it's different. Apparently this used to be a much more common thing like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. At least since I've been following college basketball closely the last like 10-ish years, I haven't seen that a whole lot. But Diebler told me, he said, like, we want to simulate an NCAA tournament game. So they're going to play Virginia, which he feels is going to be an NCAA tournament game at where the Predators play. I think it's Bridgestone. Is that Bridgestone?
In Nashville.
So he said, we want to play in a neutral site. We want to play a tournament team, and we're going to simulate a tournament game. Now, we'll revisit that in March when they, instead of getting 5 days off, they're going to play like a Big Ten game, get 2 days off, play Virginia, get 2 days off, back to the Big Ten. So I'll probably ask him again in March, like, hey, looking back, are you glad you did that?
Yeah. All right. Bruce Thornton, the talk of the town around this team, and for good reason. He is such a star. What were your impressions in the offseason of Bruce going into the year and now through 4 games? How do you think he's begun to live up to it?
Well, he entered the NBA draft in the spring, but he wasn't projected to get drafted by pretty much anybody that you read online. So it definitely seemed of more like I'm just going to go and work out for these teams, see what they say, and come back to school. That's what happened. He's honestly done a lot more than I thought that he was going to do. I thought that maybe his like scoring on a per game basis was going to tick back a little bit just because they added Tilly. You're assuming that Devin Royal and like John Mobley both get a little better, score a little more. Maybe Bruce doesn't need to shoulder the load quite as much this year, but so far, I don't know if it's been necessary for him to do it, but he's just been an absolute star. He had 38, I think, against Purdue Fort Wayne. That was a career high. And he's just like, there are times in a game when he's just, the team is slowing down and he's like, just give me the ball. I will get you a bucket. And there has yet to be a game this year where he hasn't been the best player on the floor. I think that he is a National Player of the Year candidate. I think he's that good.
Really? Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think he is, especially within the Big Ten, to have somebody like him where you always think about, do you have the best player on the floor and do you have the top end talent to compete? And the analytics for a guy like Bruce check out. And he's somebody that, to me, you can really see why they built around him. You mentioned Devin Royal and some of these guys that Ohio State put together on this roster. I think this is going to be a pretty good season for Ohio State. Do you think there are let's take a look at the flip side of it. What are some weaknesses do you think that maybe you've already seen crop up that make you nervous? What are some things that maybe you could see are limitations that could hold this team back?
I'm still pretty concerned about them defensively. I have KenPom pulled up. I think they're like 60-some. They're 65 in defensive efficiency. And I mean, the stats tell us that if you're that far down in defensive efficiency, that's not a team that's going to make the second weekend of the tournament. They added Tilly, but he's not a great defender. They really struggled against Notre Dame. They're trying to lock up Marcus Burton and Braden Shrewsbury, and then Notre Dame just destroyed them in the paint. So I have concerns about the defense, still very concerned about the defense, but they are 4-0, and I don't think that we can be too crazy critical of anything until they start losing games, but that's something that I'm keeping an eye on.
I know it's crossover season for you, Connor. So you're covering football, you're covering basketball, and I'm sure you got a lot on your plate. Do you have any other takes on the rest of the Big Ten in general from a basketball perspective, and what this conference looks like this year? Because I think to me at least, it looks like the best conference in college basketball, and I don't think you can argue that. At least through the first 2 weeks, I believe their record as a conference is 64-4. Through the first 2 weeks. I think I saw that last night. Just phenomenal what they've been able to do.
Yeah, first of all, I actually don't cover football for Land Grant, I love college football. I don't cover college football for Land Grant. They hired me specifically for basketball, and we have upped their basketball coverage so much in the 5 years that I've been there. Still love football, but I don't write about football.
It's funny because you say that, and I've followed you, I've read your stuff, and I've only ever read your basketball. But I just got done interviewing Jody Demling from Louisville, who was talking to me about he's going down. He's not going to be at the Louisville Cincinnati game because he's down in Dallas for Louisville football, and it's just everybody in college sports you feel like gets pulled in a few different directions. But good for you, man, to be focused on one sport.
We've got guys with Land Grant that do cover football extensively. I just focus on basketball because that's what I love. About the Big Ten, though.
Hoophead, we love it.
Big Ten's going to be really good. I think Michigan's going to be really good. I know they've looked okay so far. Purdue's going to be awesome. And then there's some fringe teams that I think are going to be pretty good. Like, I like Nebraska a lot. I think I liked Washington until they just went into, I think, double OT with Southern the other night.
Yeah, last night.
So I liked Washington a lot until I saw that. I think I still like them. USC should be good. They've got a lot of good teams and some like bubble-ish teams that haven't been in the tournament for a minute that I think should be good.
Yeah, I think when you look at Washington, I mean, they just got Desmond Claude back. He had a nice game, but you could tell he was still coming back from injury. And they're a mid-50s team right now on KenPom. But again, it's really early to be looking at the data there. I do like what Washington put together this year. But Danny Sprinkle, again, you're in the Big Ten now. You got to win. They have some nice pieces, but we'll see. But I appreciate you, Connor. Is there anything else before we wrap up here with Ohio State, maybe that I haven't asked you about? Any players, takes, schedules, notes, news, anything on Ohio State basketball that you feel like fans should know that we haven't addressed yet?
I'm not sure. Maybe just watch the 2 first Big Ten games they play in December. Watch Northwestern and Illinois. KenPom right now has them losing both of those. They're projected to start 0-2 in the Big Ten. And I would say if Jake Diebler starts 0-2 in the Big Ten, the fans aren't going to love that too much. There's going to be some whispers. There's going to be some cranky folks. So they got a challenge at Northwestern, then back home against Illinois. So I'm going to be paying attention. I'm very interested to see if they can at least split those two.
For sure. Well, Connor, I appreciate you. Tell the people where they can follow you, read your stuff.
Sure. Hey, I appreciate it. LandGrantHolyland.com is where all my written stuff is. You can follow it at LandGrant33. Follow me at Lamons_Connor on Twitter. And then I also host and co-host a couple basketball podcasts for Land Grant, so you can listen to those. There's one that I drop the morning of every home game for kind of a pregame primer that I've been doing. So
what's it called? What's it called?
The Day of Game podcast is called Good Hoops Morning, and then the one that we do weekly for Ohio State on Thursdays is called Bucketheads. So we do those weekly, and then lots of written stuff. We're getting into the meat of it, so I'm writing 3, 4, 5 articles a week.
All right. I know you said you didn't cover football, but I'm sure people listening to this are all Ohio State football fans as well as basketball fans. Is this year they get it done next week, Connor?
You're not going to like my answer to that, so I think that tells you all you need to know. I'm a broken man after several years, so I'm not super confident about what's going to happen in Ann Arbor.
Hand up, I'm not from Cincinnati. I'm not actually from Ohio at all, so I don't have any stake in the game for Ohio State or Michigan. So when you say I won't like the answer, I got no piece of the pie. So
I can't assume that Ryan Day will beat Michigan until I see him beat Michigan. So if he wins this year, then next year I'll go into it confident. Right now I'm kind of going on the assumption that they will not win in Ann Arbor.
All right. Well, we'll see. Connor, I appreciate you, man. And let's do this again sometime.
Dude, anytime, man. Appreciate you.